Yeah, what's good, y'all? Today we got teens' reactions to life sentences after doing scary crimes. Like, fuck out here, nigga.
Tonight, the 19-year-old accused of murdering his teenage roommates is locked up in jail, and a judge is not letting him out.
New at 11, police arrest a man in connection with a double homicide out of Daytona Beach.
Jessica Reisinger Robineau and her 21-month-old daughter were killed attempting to cross the street when two young men were racing.
I can't explain to you the effort and courage it takes to walk into that morgue and see the injuries that you created on her.
The following stories tell the tale of three teenagers who absolutely ruined their lives by doing the most unthinkable things. We have a charismatic, recent high school graduate that struck and killed a woman and her infant daughter while street racing with a friend. We also have a 19-year-old man who was so filled with anger that he killed two of his friends.
This nigga's retarded. I ain't gonna lie.
Finally, we have a young and talented, possible future musician who ruined her life by participating in a robbery that ended in the death of a fellow teenager.
Alright.
This is the story of Cameron
This
Herring,
nigga looked like that
who became
one.
famous on social media largely because of his good
I
looks
think he was a
when
school
he
shooter or
became
something.
famous for his crimes. Cameron lived a privileged
brother.
life in Tampa, Florida, where he had every opportunity to build a wonderful future for himself.
You got to speak
That
up,
future
I ain't
would not turn out how anyone could have expected. It all began when, upon Cameron's graduation, he was gifted a black Ford Mustang from his parents. This gift would end up changing his life.
Oh, brother, don't blame the
Cameron
fucking gift.
absolutely loved the speed and power of the car. He loved the looks and admiration he got when he drove it. He looked forward to testing its limits. On May 23rd of 2018, Cameron and his brother Tristan hopped into his car and sped off to a local gym, where they went to visit Cameron's friend, John.
No shit. Yeah.
While Cameron and his brother got into his fancy new car, John got into a fancy new Nissan. They decided it would be fun to do some street racing. Both drivers lined up their cars next to each other at a stoplight, and as soon as it turned green, they shot off down the highway, each one trying to drive faster than the other. It was estimated that Cameron was going around 100 miles per hour.
That'll do it.
He absolutely loved the thrill of it, and he felt like he was in a racing video game, but in real life. He and John were both weaving in and out of traffic, switching lanes and going faster and faster. Their desire to beat each other clouded their judgment so much that they made a terrible mistake and overlooked a woman with a baby stroller trying to cross the street.
Ah, man. God.
John's eye caught the woman in the last second, and he swerved to avoid, but this caused Cameron to swerve to avoid the Nissan, and he drove right into the woman, sending her and the baby stroller flying. There was nothing he could do to undo what had just happened. The woman was Jessica Rabinault. She lay on the ground in great pain and unable to move, while her baby lay nearby in grave condition. One of the reasons that this story is so horrifically tragic was that Jessica and her daughter didn't even live in Tampa.
They was out there for
They
a
were
vacay,
only in
huh?
town because she was visiting her uncle. All she had wanted to do was take a relaxing walk with her daughter, and there's no way she could have expected this to happen. Jessica had what anyone would describe as the perfect life. She had met her husband David while in college, and they married after graduation. It wasn't long after that they became parents to adorable Lilia. David had actually been in town the day that the accident occurred. He had been sitting in traffic and wondering why it was so backed up. He could have never imagined that the crash involved his beloved wife and daughter.
There ain't no way that's 100% fact.
David ended up taking a different way back to Jessica's uncle's house.
Oh, wait,
he was
it is?
expecting to find her
My
and the
fault.
baby there, but
Wow,
nobody
that's
was
crazy.
home. He saw the lights of police cars off in the distance,
What are
along
you
with
out
a
to
group
that?
of people
Wow.
that were standing by watching.
That
He
is
wondered
actually
if
nuts.
Jessica had gone to the
That's
scene
movie
to see
shit.
what had happened, so he walked over to look for her. But when he got closer, he saw something horrifying. It was a stroller that looked very much like Lilia's. Sure enough, it was soon confirmed that his wife and daughter were the victims in the crash and had been taken to the hospital.
That is insane.
David rushed to the hospital as fast as he could, and when he got there, he was given the worst news imaginable. His wife died, and there was nothing that could be done to save Lilia.
That is fucking...
The baby passed away the next day, and David's life was changed forever. Cameron and John were both arrested for vehicular manslaughter. Even though John did not strike anyone, he still contributed to the crash. Tristan was also arrested because he knowingly rode along with Cameron, despite knowing that what they were doing was illegal and dangerous. They pleaded not guilty and were released on bail. When the pandemic hit in 2020, court proceedings were temporarily paused as the world went under lockdown, so Cameron didn't end up actually facing trial until January
I think it does look
of
familiar,
2021.
I ain't gonna lie.
Around this time, John ended up taking a plea deal and pleaded guilty to the vehicular manslaughter. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Cameron also ended up pleading guilty but was not offered any sort of plea deal since he was the one who struck the victims. His defense tried to say that because Cameron was so young, his brain wasn't fully developed yet, and he truly didn't understand the dangers of what he was doing. Cameron's parents knew that there was a good chance that their son could face a significant prison sentence, so his mother took the stand to try to beg for mercy. She started by recalling the day the accident occurred.
I received a frantic, distressed call from Cameron.
Oh.
And he told me he had been involved in an accident. And it was clear to me that he was crying, and I kept him on the phone until I could get to the scene.
She went on to say that Cameron told her that he had killed someone. She assured him that there was no way that this could be the case, and he was just panicking in the heat of the moment. But she didn't know what had really gone down. When she arrived at the scene, she saw John crying with his head in his hands and Cameron crying and throwing up. Tristan was also very upset. She said that both boys suffered from PTSD as a result of what happened, even to the point where they could not sleep alone at night. She also said that if it were possible, she would take responsibility for their actions so that they wouldn't have to.
That's not how it works,
like
man.
over and over and over in their heads, and I'll hear screams at night from either of the boys as they're having these nightmares. They had anxiety attacks. And panic attacks. This past almost 3 years has been the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and the hardest thing our family, the four of us, have had to go through.
She also discussed how Cameron has already had to suffer and will continue to suffer the mental effects of what happened.
The impact plays over and over in his head. It'll never go away, and he's going to have to figure out a way to live with this for the rest of his life.
The family of the victims did extend some sympathy, but as Jessica's mom would acknowledge, their pain would never be as great as theirs because they did not lose family members.
I don't want to seem that I don't feel for the Heron family, I do, but their perspective on what they've lost, they are such two sweet souls crossing the street coming home from a party.
Jessica's husband, David, was also given the chance to speak, and his response was lengthy.
I'm sure.
He spoke directly to Cameron.
It is critical for you to understand that you've created everlasting pain and depths of sorrow.
He demanded justice for his family.
2 beautiful, innocent lives were denied a full life. You eliminated their voices from this earth.
He continued emotionally requesting a maximum sentence for Cameron. The judge would ultimately sentenced Cameron to more years in prison than he had been alive on the planet.
Damn.
It was clear by the teen's wide eyes as the sentence was read. The judge did not go easy on Cameron. He started by acknowledging that there was nothing he could do to fix the harm that had been caused. He also acknowledged that he didn't believe that Cameron had intended to harm anyone, but at the end of the day, that didn't really matter.
Nah, G shit.
But there was intent to drive at an egregious speed.
Nah, word, it wasn't
102 miles an hour, regardless of the consequences and regardless of who that ended up harming. And then the second part of that, the second component, is the harm caused. And in this case, it's just impossible to have greater harm than the harm that occurred in this case, which was the loss of a mother, loss of a baby, and really the loss of a family.
Nah.
So on count one, vehicular homicide, the court's going to adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to 9 years in Florida State Prison. On count two, same charge, court will adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to 15 years Florida State Prison, and that'll run consecutive to count one, for a total 24 years Florida State Prison.
24 years in prison. That means that Cameron will be middle-aged by the time he is released and will have essentially missed out on a huge chunk of his life. Cameron's lawyer later filed an appeal, stating that the sentence was too severe. But at the end of the day, 2 people lost their lives because of Cameron's actions. As disturbing and shocking as it may sound, many people on social media didn't agree with Cameron's sentence and actually tried to have the sentence reversed. There's even a petition online entitled Justice for Cameron Herron. This is a real petition that thousands...
Justice, bitch. Yo, I ain't gonna lie. These TikTok-minded niggas and bitches, man, different fucking ball game. These niggas be chatting and saying anything in any sense. This is, I don't know, the world is so damn different.
Of people have signed.
The world is
the bio
crazy.
for the petition reads, "You might have heard about the accident. We could change so much just by voting for his justice, because this nice guy has been wronged badly, and putting him behind bars for 24 years won't fix anything. Let's prevent him from this injustice and lower his punishment, because as John Fitzgibbons once said, everyone in the community has a broken heart over this."
What the fuck? Yo, bro, I'm not gonna lie.
He's a good kid, and he's never been in any trouble whatsoever.
The world is so different.
Let's give him a second chance.
Nah, the world has really lost it.
Please.
It just gets worse by the day.
Still, others took to social media to gush
fucking
over
TikTokers.
Cameron's looks. They wrote things like, "Justice for Cameron. He deserves a second chance." Another person took to Twitter to write, "I see that this boy does not deserve this harsh sentence.
Eat dick.
He just made a mistake
Not word,
that he
eat
must pay
dick.
for. But 24 years is not fair. We ask for a shorter time."
Yo, word to everything. I would love to see alternate universes where the tune is changed because it was somebody in their family, immediate family. Every single person that's making these dumbass comments, the fucking, the Patreon, whatever it's called, the poll, whatever the fuck. Like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, niggas are so different. Because niggas just be dick sucking crazy. Niggas do not know this fucking man. And if that was any of these niggas' family, yo, niggas got it, bro. I low-key
Yeah,
gonna skip
another
this shit.
person
This
on
shit gonna
Twitter
tweak
wrote,
me.
"It was an accident.
Alright,
not a murder.
yeah.
Everyone
Let it be your
deserves a
mom's.
second chance.
Your mom's your
He
baby
was a
sister.
handsome criminal." What do you
Bro, get
think?
me out of here. Let me out. I'm not. I can't do it, bro. I'm not.
New at 11, police arrest a man in connection with a double homicide out of Daytona Beach that has a South Florida connection.
This 19-year-old Damon Kemp tonight facing 2 counts of second-degree murder. The 2 victims, both just 19, attended high school in Palm Beach County.
The date was December 7th, 2018. Police were called to an apartment complex in Daytona Beach. When they arrived at the scene, they were met with 19-year-old Damon Kemp. Damon made a shocking confession, telling police, "I killed my friend." After arresting Damon, police entered the apartment in question and found the bodies of 2 19-year-old men, Trey Ingraham and Jordan Payton. Bullet holes were also found around the apartment, and it was determined that the bodies had been lying there for 24 hours. What terrible thing could have happened here? And why hadn't anyone called the police sooner?
So we know at one point one of the victims attended St. Lucia's High School here behind me, but today friends and former coaches took to social media saying both young men had bright futures ahead of them before being fatally shot in Daytona Beach. Those who knew 19-year-old Trey Ingram say he was a natural athlete.
A young and inspired fighter, someone who I thought definitely had all the tools to become a world champion.
Trey was well known in his community for his athletic skills, especially his talents as a boxer. He likely would have gone on to do great things if his own friend hadn't taken his life.
Like, what the fuck is this back
Trey
doing
and
that
Damon
shit?
had been roommates. They had been friends since high school and hung out all the time. They even worked out together in the gym. They seemed to be very close, and nobody could sense any animosity between them. But there must have been more than what meets the eye. As the police looked into the details of this double homicide, they found out that Trey actually had kicked Damon out of the apartment they once shared, just a couple of weeks before the murder occurred. The details of why aren't initially clear. One of Damon's other friends had said that he noticed Damon acting really weird in the days leading up to the homicide.
Lost his marbles.
He said that he had been paranoid and skittish and seemed to be having some sort of mental health problem. But in a later interview, Damon admitted that he had no mental health problems and the night of the murders he was just high. He also said that the substance he had been smoking could have been laced with something else in which caused him to act the way that he did. While the police work to piece together what could have happened, the community mourns the sudden loss of Trey and Jordan. His former coach posted on social media. One of the teens' best friends spoke through tears about the pain of losing them.
It's tough, I got you, bro. I know you looking down.
As you can imagine, there were a lot of emotions going on around the community due to the loss of these two young men.
You got me.
People were heartbroken, confused, angry, and perhaps most of all, desperate for justice. The police assured them that justice would be served.
I feel very comfortable that we are going to get justice for the families and these victims. This is a tragedy, and my main focus now is on those victims.
When the police looked into the community where the shooting happened, they learned that this was an area of high crime. Some of the neighbors had heard gunshots the night of the murders, but they didn't call the police because this was such a common occurrence.
Nice.
Very loud pops, just bang, 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 just very rapid procession.
Described one neighbor.
So it's an active investigation at this point in time.
Damon seemed to think that by acting crazy in court, that would get him out of accepting responsibility for his actions.
Sound retarded, like.
In fact, his crazy behavior would end up going viral on social media.
God! God!
Sound stupid, look stupid, like,
Safe
come on.
to say, he was denied bond. It's not clear why he was acting like this, but he ended up being pushed to and from court in a wheelchair. That wasn't all he did throughout court proceedings. He would also make bizarre faces and try to act like he was hiding from the judge. Early on in the trial, Damon's lawyer was asked whether or not Damon was going to be sane enough to stand trial. At this point, it's too early to tell whether or not this particular defendant has issues of competency, issues of sanity, he said. But for the most part, people weren't really buying his crazy act. They thought it was all a big show.
Get the fuck out of my face, bro. I ought to backhand the fuck out you, you stupid fuck. It's like you look slow. What the fuck? Yo, bro, stop playing with me, bro. Stop playing with me. I ought to, man. You look like one dumb fuck, let me tell you.
To a mental hospital instead of prison. What Damon's fate ordered to get sent to a mental hospital. They thought it was all a big show that he was putting on in order to get sent to a mental hospital instead of prison. What Damon's fate will be, we have yet to find out, as the pandemic ended up majorly delaying court systems, so he has not yet been sentenced. His grieving family waits for the day to come that justice will be served.
Nah, fuck that whole ass nigga, man. Throw that nigga in the fucking. Come on.
Get a phone call like you did, and
come on.
you don't get a chance to hear their voice anymore.
What do you think? Is Damon Kemp insane or just a cold-hearted
Bro,
killer?
think of yourself and
Let
fuck
us know
up.
in
Get
the
on my
comments.
face, bro. Come on. Fuck you in them comments. What's good, little lady? What the fuck
Well,
you
she
on?
was the lead singer in a local band with a very bright future, but now a teenager from Saline will spend at least 6 years in prison. A judge sentenced Samantha Grigg today in the murder of the University of Michigan student.
18-year-old Samantha Grigg from Michigan was so close to graduating high school and starting the next season of her life. In fact, she was just one credit away. She was also a very talented musician, known in the community for her beautiful voice. She could have very easily had the chance to have a career in the music industry and have lots of success. But she threw it all away in the blink of an eye. This is because she agreed to participate in a 2014 robbery. 16-year-old Brendan Hyam and 18-year-old Tyrell Bernanitz were in the Ford Explorer that Samantha was driving, heading towards a robbery.
Oh, she was a getaway?
Samantha knew what Brendan and Tyrell were intending to do when she got behind the wheel. She drove the two teens into an East Lansing apartment where 19-year-old Dustin Frolka was living. She waited in the car for them to come out, dragging Dustin along with them. They then got into the vehicle, Dustin still in tow. Samantha's car was traveling up to 60 miles an hour as she drove to a local ATM where the teens forced Dustin to withdraw money. During this whole ordeal, Brendan and Tyrell savagely beat Dustin using brass knuckles. In fact, the beating was so hard that Dustin chose to throw himself out of the speeding vehicle onto the road instead of suffering any more torture. He would later die. His injuries were so incredibly severe and included fractures to the skull. All of this, Samantha agreed to in exchange for $100 in gas money.
Frolka's body was found along I-69 north of East Lansing in February. Prosecutors say he had been beaten with brass knuckles and left on the side of the freeway.
She, along with Brendan and Tyrell, would later be arrested. She ended up taking a plea deal. In court, she explained what happened that fateful night.
And also happening today, a teenager from Saline pleading guilty in the murder case of a Michigan State University student. 19-year-old Samantha Grigg pled guilty to manslaughter and unarmed robbery. As part of her plea deal, she will testify against her co-defendants in the case.
Tyrell and Brendan went outside the car, took his clothing and his money, and came back to the car.
She admitted she did know that Tyrell and Brendan intended to rob Dustin.
In the course of taking him home, Brendan began to punch him in the backseat of the car, and Dustin opened the door and out of the car.
Not only could this whole thing have been prevented if Samantha reported the teens to the police, perhaps Dustin's life could have even been saved if she had bothered to try to get him some sort of medical attention instead of leaving him on the side of the road to die. In order for Samantha to have any potential future whatsoever, it was critical for her to take the plea deal of manslaughter over a murder charge.
If she had been convicted of the original offense, the murder, there would have been a life without the possibility of parole.
The maximum amount of time that Samantha could have faced in prison was 15 years, but this would allow her to still have freedom in the future. When Samantha's day of sentencing finally came, she cried as she listened to the victim impact statements. Dustin's aunt, stepmother, and sister all took the time to talk. They discussed all of the things that he would be missing out on as a result of his life being cut short, most especially the opportunity to raise his young daughter.
He got a kid.
He's going to miss his daughter Melody's first
Melody
steps,
is such a fire name.
her first words, her
That
birthdays,
sucks.
her graduations, her joys, her heartaches. She'll never get to know her daddy.
Now we live knowing that on the
That
night of February
fucking sucks.
15th, 2014, while we were inside our warm houses, Dustin was left to die on the side of the road, and there was nothing we could do to help him.
Then Samantha had the chance to take the stand and apologize to Dustin's loved ones for her actions that have changed their lives forever.
I would like to extend my deepest remorse to the family of the victim. He was a fellow musician. It really breaks my heart. And I wish I could take it back every day.
But there is nothing Samantha can do to take back what she did. The judge ultimately sentenced her to 6 to 15 years in prison. Dustin's stepmother said that there is really no winner in this situation. This judgment didn't mean that Dustin was coming back, and at the end of the day, 3 young people's lives were ruined forever.
I don't think there's peace ever.
This shit
They've
dumb
ruined
as
their
hell, I
lives,
go down.
but they've ruined a lot of our lives too.
Samantha will likely be in her 30s at the time of her release from prison, allowing her to still pursue a career and start a family if she wants. This is a chance Dustin will never have. Upon her release from prison, Samantha's goal is to become a music teacher and work.
Alright, why you gotta pop this shit up?
Do you think her
Watch out.
sentence is fair, or should Samantha be forced to do more prison time
Come on,
as
talk.
a result of her role in
Speed
this
it up,
tragic
bitch.
event? Let us know.
Shut up. Alright, get it on my screen. All I do with that right there.
Yeah, nah, shit sucks. You know, niggas on dumb shit, niggas on dumbass timing. I ain't gonna lie, that one nigga that slimed his niggas out on some, talking about some lace. I don't know, bro. The worst one, but yeah, nah. Whole lot of BS, whole lot of bull, man. But you know what I'm saying? Y'all niggas stay safe, you know. Take it easy. Good bit.